Hi, Internet.
Wait, I think one thing that we all need to understand and all need to analyze, especially when we're trying to observe and analyze a very, very serious film that's actually interpreted through a book, Peter Jackson's interpretation of this very hokey and sort of humorous style of either action scenes or dialogue. One specific scene that really, really stood out to me as probably one of the most hokey scenes in the entire Desolation of Smaug was when the dwarves are traveling by the barrels through the river, and Bomber is in the barrel and he's rolling on the hill, and when he sticks his arms out of the barrel almost like he's a transformer, having that little visor area of the barrel where he starts doing that, he starts spinning around and killing the orcs that way. I mean, I thought that scene was just absolutely ridiculous. As much as it was entertaining, I do tend to go back and forth on whether or not it was necessary in terms of the story, or in terms of like actually taking into consideration the seriousness of the story and the dwarves.
I mean, I think the biggest question is, does it take you out of it?
Yeah.
And I think it did. And I think that's the biggest problem with it. I mean, when we were in the theater, people fucking laughed their asses off. It was funny, but...
Are we supposed to laugh our asses off, though?
Yes,
was it?
No, definitely.
That's exactly the thing.
No, without a doubt.
We're supposed to be in silence to mean, what the fuck is going to happen?
No, but without a doubt, you were supposed to laugh there. So, I mean, I just think it was ugly. It looked ugly. It was completely digital. It looked like you were looking at a video game. It took you out of the immersion of the film. I thought it was all around just a bad scene. And anything like that in the same vein, I thought was completely out of place.
I think if people in the future start off with The Hobbit and build up to Lord of the Rings, it makes a big difference. And The Hobbit is appropriate for children in that sense, where you can grow up to it, and as soon as you're a teenager, you'll start watching Lord of the Rings and realize how much more real that shit really is. I think that it's kind of playful for Peter Jackson at this point, because when you read The Hobbit, you're not really immersed in violence, you're immersed in his story, So it's not really about the violence or the action. It's more about this crazy fable, the story that's being told, and the violence only is an aspect of it that's not necessarily as important as goes for Lord of the Rings.
With that, with the action being all hokey, fine, you don't have to put blood, in your action scenes. You don't have to show, facial expressions of people, getting stabbed and everything. But I don't really want to giggle while I'm watching people, fight. I want to, be whoa, this is fucking badass, I want to be, at the edge of my seat. Not, sit back and be like, he transformer barrel thing, It just doesn't fucking feel real.
And honestly, I feel like that's one of the worst parts about Peter Jackson's choice of production when it comes to his films, is that he tends to add this whole genre of humor to film. And I think when it comes to a film like Lord of the Rings, especially a film that, takes up about 3 hours of time, there's that filler which Peter Jackson chooses to add to his films, where him trying to add, a balance of humor and trying to add a balance of innocence, And I get completely what you mean, and that whole barrel scene did feel completely over the top, and I completely feel that way. But I think that's just Peter Jackson. That's a part of Peter Jackson's style. I think when we go to see a film like The Hobbit, or when we watch a film like one of the trilogy films, like one of the Ring films, that is something that we expect out of Peter Jackson. And I think it's something that we don't necessarily need to respect, but it should be expected, just knowing his style of making film.
I did really like the elf combat, though. It wasn't hokey, it was very straightforward. It was, really cool action moves, and doing, crazy around the back twists and whatnot. It was really beautiful to watch.
I think to approach making the Lord of the Rings movies as a legacy, a cultural legacy for the ages, is just the totally wrong way for them to go about making these new movies. So it doesn't really make sense for me anyway for them to make it more the kids will watch this one first and then Lord of the Rings. I mean, he should be making these movies for the fans of these movies now. And I think that none of the fans of the movies now, who are all our age at least, want to see this childish shit. I think it's fine to put in humorous moments. I think it should be done through dialogue, and I think these unrealistic physics moments, and anything that makes it not real and makes it fantasy and makes it, not believable, is a slap in the face to all the people who
bought into that world,
Yeah,
and really take the lore of Middle Earth very seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, kids will be watching this shit 20 or 30 years from now, but it will not be the same. This is the generation that cares about this movies. Just people who really, really, really love the original Star Wars are all 40 now. So they should be making the movies for people who care about it and not for kids.
Peter Jackson. I think at this point he's proven himself that he should have the creative freedom to create the world in which he wants everything to exist. And as much as our generation and everyone who's witnessed The Lord of the Rings can't take this seriously now, I think in a long time there's something we can all laugh about, and not in the sense that we want to at this point because we want something that's more real. But I think it's fun, you know, and coming from Peter Jackson's perspective, it's ultimately his decision to create something that's more loose, lighthearted, because maybe Lord of the Rings was really intense. Maybe to some people it's too intense. And I think it's good for him to create the world of Lord of the Rings that's not that intense, that'll help people get more involved in it in the long run, you know? Have that lightheartedness, so when Lord of the Rings does come around, you finish The Hobbit, you have to watch Lord of the Rings to understand it its entirety, you can actually sit through it and take it seriously. And like what we said, like in 20, 30 years, it's going to mean something completely different from what it means now. And right now, I'm not going to lie, I'm not content with it. The first Hobbit, I was really frustrated with. But in the long run, it's going to be okay.
I think I completely agree with you.
Do it.
Can you guys sing the Lord of the Rings song?
Yeah, can you guys sing the Lord of the Rings song?
We have to do it like
We should run through the shot like.
Yes!